Welcome to Trimet 101. It's time for a history lesson. Pay attention, there will be a quiz. No, I'm just kidding. So, how many paint schemes have been used in Trimet? This is kind of hard to answer, but in general there's 4. But there are variants and strange things that I'll talk about. 1969 to 1980. This was Trimet's orange era. The buses were very orange. These more or less came from Trimet's predecessor, Rose City Transit. There aren't a ton of pictures of these because, well, I mean, that's kind of ugly. When Trimet first took over from Rose City Transit, they also took over 88 buses, but it soon became apparent that more buses were needed because many of them were really old, and to expand the fleet, Trimet would need new buses. At some point, lots of the buses here were repainted, I think. But some of the more iconic buses that Trimet had early on were the 300 series, which were from the early 70s. But again, the pictures that I'm able to find are of the later Trimet paint schemes, so I think they repainted all of them at some point. 1980 to 2002. Now time for Trimet's first visually appealing paint scheme. So the change was that the base of everything was white, a blank white slate, and there were 3 stripes in the colors of burgundy, red, and orange. You might notice that these are also the Blazers colors. I don't believe that is a coincidence at all. The stripes are placed under the windows, so low-floor vehicles that have a couple of high windows and the rest are low have a sort of interesting look to them. However, there are a couple of differences and variants for these paint stripes. Trimet's buses had the stripes take a sharp upward turn at the front of the bus, whereas the trains do not. Also, there was considerably more black paint on buses versus the Max, likely to sort of disguise the fact that the buses were using a dirty diesel fuel, whereas the trains do not. To this day, Trimet still operates around 50 vehicles with this paint scheme. None of them are buses anymore. The last of those would have retired in 2019. But 3 Type 1 trains and most of the Type 2s have these stripes still on them. 2002 to 19. The new millennium meant, of course, we need a new paint scheme. So Trimet introduced what I like to call the blue and yellow semicircles. Basically, the buses and trains have blue and yellow semicircles. I think Trimet calls them bubbles. At this time, Trimet also removed the hyphen in their name and redesigned their logo to make it look like it wasn't drawn in pen. Once again, there are differences between the buses and the trains. The buses had the semicircles near the back of the bus, with the blue color reaching the entire back of the bus. The Max and West trains have the semicircles centered on the sides of the trains, which is interesting. I believe the first buses to be painted in this paint scheme were Trimet's hybrid test buses, numbers 2561 and 2562. The first trains to be painted using this scheme were the Type 3s. Several older buses were also repainted into the new paint scheme for one reason or another over the years. Gillig Phantoms 1442, 1615, 1640, and 2101. New Flyer D40LF numbers 2291, 2555, and 2557 through 2561 also had the new paint. Max Cars 203 and 235 also have this paint despite being Type 2s introduced in the late 90s. I'm not sure what happened on car number 203, but I do know about car number 235. This is Trimet's unlucky train car. It has been involved in several accidents, including a quite destructive one in 2005 where the train collided with a fire truck in downtown Hillsborough. The damage was so severe that they ended up repainting the train, and this is what they painted it with, the blue and yellow semicircles. Most of the Type 1s also have this paint, because throughout the 2000s and 2010s they were undergoing some upgrades. However, there are still 3 Type 1s that don't have this paint, numbers 102, 103, and 116. So if you want to track those down while they're still running, you might want to do that. Unrelated, but they also have several other original components. 116 still has a ton of the original windows that would flip open, that you could actually open. Many of them have been nailed shut, so you can't actually open them anymore, but they're still in there. 2019 to present, Trimet introduced a new paint scheme, and this one is far, far different from anything they've ever had before. The base is entirely blue rather than white, and there are 3 diagonal orange stripes that go near the rear of the vehicle. And once again, there is one difference between the buses and trains. The buses have 1 set of stripes near the rear of the vehicle, and the trains have 2. So the first buses to use this paint scheme were, that question's kind of hard to answer. The 3800s were kind of the first to use it. Now I know it doesn't really look like it, but the blue, the base color blue on the 3800s is the exact same blue that became the standard from that point forward. However, the 3900 series buses were the first to actually include the orange stripes. Both series of buses entered service in 2019, so it's kind of weird. The 3800s were sort of the transition from the previous paint scheme to the current one. The first trains to use it were, what do you know, also kind of confusing. If we're being technical here, the first train to enter service with the new paint scheme is Trimet's only one to have entered service so far, and that is number 315, a Type 3 that's been overhauled. It was overhauled after Trimet announced the new paint scheme, so it wears the new blue and orange paint. And this is possibly Trimet's most eye-catching Max train currently running. It's really nice. And 3 more are currently in California undergoing the same treatment. Numbers 215, 231, and 241. They're all Type 2s. So they will slowly be phased in, but all 3 are currently sitting in California. However, the Type 6s, which are being slowly delivered and very slowly tested, are the first new trains that are going to wear this paint. And these might just be more eye-catching than number 315. There are also 9 buses that have been overhauled and, again, wear this paint. Numbers 3042 through 46 had their diesel motors upgraded and an interior overhaul happened, and they repainted the outside. Numbers 3048 through 3050 were converted to battery electric. These have never run in service since their conversion. Might make more sense to convert them back to diesel or something. And the Desert Rose, number 4101, has also been converted to electric. All 9 of those buses have the new paint. And number 4101 is a D60 LF from New Flyer, and it came from Valley Metro in Arizona. It was yet another bus to be converted to electric, and it unfortunately has never entered service, and we've had it for a while. It's really too bad because this might be one of Trimet's most eye-catching buses. 2021 to future, there's another paint scheme that was introduced in 2021 that is very closely related to the blue with the orange stripes. That summer, Frequent Express, or FX, was first introduced to the public. There was a demonstration bus that wore a very interesting paint scheme. Throughout the end of 2021 and throughout all of 2022, Nova buses were being delivered that wore bright green paint with 3 blue diagonal stripes. Again, very, very similar, it's just different colors. 2 more FX lines are currently being planned, so I expect we'll see more bright green buses within the next decade. So this means that Trimet currently has 2 paint schemes that they can paint their vehicles. Standard vehicles get the blue base with the orange stripes, and FX buses get the green base with blue stripes. Pretty interesting. Alright, class is dismissed, your history lesson is over, and you may now go to lunch. Thank you for watching.